So today I am interviewing Jackie Grundberg. She is the founder of Backpack Sciences. And I have been following Jackie since she started this membership, even before it was actually off the ground. And she was actually one of the very first people I ever interviewed. So welcome, Jackie.
Hello, hello. I'm so glad to be here.
Well, thank you for coming. And what Jackie and I are going to do today is we're going to visit about a few strategies that you can use to help teach science to your kids, regardless of what curriculum you're using. And then at the end of this, if you're interested in learning more about Jackie's program, she'll tell you all about it. So, Jackie, what are some of the common, I suppose, obstacles that parents have when they go to teach science lessons to their kids?
Well, I think the first thing is just, from our experience, science just, most people, it's just overwhelming. Like you have to know the concept really well. You have to then come up with experiments. And then, you have to find all the materials and then do the experiment and then continue on. It just seems like there's just so many more steps than a typical lesson that we come up with. And so the problem, I think that what happens is people get overwhelmed and then they put it off because they want to focus on, the basic math, language, reading. And so those solid foundations are met. So what I really want to encourage parents, basically homeschooling parents, is that it can be easy. It really can be easy without all of those things. And it's changing a kind of a mindset, changing what you have at your home or your resources and things like that. So I think my whole thing is that don't put it off to the side. Really have science in your everyday life. And not just, we're going to go outside, but we can use that. But, doing that in a more constructive way, but just, first of all, like taking yourself, just, take a deep breath and say, you know what, however I feel about science, whether I loved it when I was younger or I didn't, we're setting a kind of idea of how we want our children to think about it. It's just like, like when some people, they grow up and they've learned, or that some people say, oh, math is really hard, or I don't like math. I think it's the same kind of idea with science. Some people say that, but science is so exciting and it's all around us. And I think, when you appreciate it also, you kind of transfer that excitement to your children. So I'm hoping that that's what I can encourage you to do.
Yes. And you know what? I forgot to ask you to share about your background, because Jackie has an amazing background in science, from really working out in the field to more. I'll let you share with people what led you to doing this.
Yeah, so before I started teaching and before I created Backpack Sciences, I was a wildlife biologist. And so that was my first career, and I was out in the field. I lived in Africa. I was, with nothing. There was, camps. There was no running water. There was no electricity. I mean, we were out in the field, and I absolutely loved it. And the way I learned science, or the way I really want to encourage science, is being outside, doing things. Or, I mean, you don't have to always be outside, but you can, kind of manipulate and have a really hands-on experiential learning. Because I think the fact of when we experience it and we're having an excitement and, like, wow, this is really cool, it makes oh, science is hard, it eliminates it all because you're experiencing it. And that's the thing. And actually, that's one thing I really wanted to encourage. One message for the homeschooling parents is that, when kids experience something, well, okay, so actually I take that back, is that I want to make sure that parents don't feel like, okay, you know what, I don't know everything about one topic or about science topics. I'm not a science expert. I have a different interest or a different, background. And how am I supposed to teach science? All of these things. And I think with elementary, especially elementary parents, and it gets a little bit more later on, but elementary parents, like, it's really about getting kids excited, getting kids to like think science is cool. Like I want to learn more. Or wow, look outside the window and there's so much going on. Or if I'm outside, and that's what we want to be excited about. That's what I want kids to really understand is like, this is really cool. And so you experience it, you're hands-on, you're manipulating things. And then later on in middle school and high school, when the concepts are a little bit more difficult, there's more details, you know, they have to memorize, they have to, you know, really, they can kind of reflect like, oh, I did do some of that, or I did something like that. I learned something about that before. Oh, and so I'm comfortable with it. You know, like if all of a sudden they start talking about meiosis or mitosis, and if you've done something in the past and you've mentioned those key terms, they'll be like, oh, I do remember that. You know, I don't remember, they may not remember the exact concept or, you know, all the details, which is okay. But it's just like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, I remember that. So let's, you know, I'm going to learn more about it. It's that comfort level.
Yeah,
And
familiarity.
exactly.
So,
Yeah.
so let's say a parent has a kindergarten age child. What are some first steps that you would take to sort of draw your child into being interested in science?
Well, I think the first thing is starting with yourself, you know? So when you, to just, first of all, let it go that you don't know about something. So I used to work at an aquarium. This is one of my, you know, previous jobs as a wildlife biologist. And I would go by and you can hear conversations of, you know, children would say like, oh, what is that? Or why is, you know, that thing, whatever it is, doing that? Or, and I could see some parents are like, you know, they kind of stiffen up like, because they don't know, they have no idea. And, you know, and you, it's getting over the fact of, you know, saying I don't know doesn't mean you're stupid or you're, you know, you're incompetent or all. It doesn't mean anything. It's just you can actually just sort of say, oh, you know what? I don't know. Let's find out. There must be a board here that tells more information, or maybe there's a interpretive, you know, a person there that can tell us more. Or let's go home and find out more information, and that just makes you be a role model of I want to learn more. And it's exciting. It's exciting to learn more. And you're role modeling a child that you don't have to know everything in this world.
Yeah.
And you just know how to find out, and you want to know how to find out, or, you know, more details. And I think that is the first step. That's the easiest thing to do, is just to say,
Curiosity.
I don't know, but let's find out. Or that's really cool. I wonder why that is. And
So
I,
I would sort of phrase that as be curious. Be curious with your kids. And this
exactly.
makes me, your experience at the aquarium makes me want to share something with parents that I have done many times. Even like last year on vacation, we did a lot of different museums. When we're going through museums, I take pictures of the boards, because then when you get back home, you have, like, let's say at the aquarium, a lot of the fish that were in the aquarium or various information, and you can use that as a springboard to go pick up books at the library and sort of go into some unit studies around that. But I think going to aquariums, museums, natural history types of things are a great way to sort of pique that curiosity in a natural way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, another thing I would say is, if they're not asking questions, you be a role model of asking questions. So if they're just standing there looking at it, which is, you know, great, and you just starts asking, I wonder what that is, or why do you think you know, the animal is doing that, or any kind of, you know, like you're walking in a park or something, or an arboretum or something like that, and you see something interesting, maybe some moss, or I don't know, something on trees, and even if you, let's say you do know the answer, you can still ask that question. Then you can kind of lead, and that's the sort of thing of you can very it's not a trick or anything, but you can lead a conversation. You can lead like how you want it. Let's say you're going to start botany, And so then you go to the Arboretum and you start saying, oh, I wonder why there are some leaves that are lighter than others. I wonder why is that? Even though and what you
Yeah.
want to do, but and then if the child says, I don't know, or they make a guess and it could be spot on or it could be totally off, you just like, oh yeah, I don't know. Let's like explore that further. And then there you go. You perfect.
I love that. And it seems like even in your membership, you have these videos, right? It's changed since my kids were younger and in it. Tell me a little bit about some of your videos in the membership and how it's structured today. I didn't really plan on going into this yet, but I'm curious about it right now.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask how it's structured today and how parents can sort of use those lessons as a springboard for even more.
Right.
How is it?
Yeah. So now, especially it's perfect for homeschooling parents because these are short videos between 5 or 6 to 10 minutes, very short videos. And I do go over concepts and it's I don't want it to be daunting, and just like a 30-minute or hour show. It's just throwing out information and sort of on specific topics. And then
geared toward the kids now?
Yes,
Is that
yeah.
correct? Geared toward the kids now.
And actually, Jackie, I remember you saying you should make, it was funny, actually, you're right. The videos first were geared towards teachers or the parents. And then you always said, Jackie, you should teach towards the kids. And so now it has.
Yeah, we have enough to do.
Yeah. So yes, the videos I'm speaking as if I'm talking to kids, like I'm teaching the kids.
And what age group are you gearing them toward now?
When I create the lessons, I'm thinking of between 9 to 12-year-olds, so 4th through 6th grade. But it really depends because I have parents, knowing your child and their needs and where they're at. I have a range from like 5-year-olds to middle school. So,
and that's sort of what I thought too when I watched them in the past, is that they could, and I'm leaving this open because you've evolved the membership since then, but I always felt like, this is perfect, like family-centered science. You could take, it's simple enough for young kids. It's complex enough for older kids that you can take that and do less or more with it. And that's always sort of been my thought, is this is family-centered science, at least elementary to middle school.
Definitely. And the nice thing about it, depending on the children, it can be independent too. You can say, okay, so, this week you're going to do some science, pick a video, or, you can be specific on, animal science, or, we're doing forensic science right now. So you can even tell the child, okay, watch this video, or, choose a video. And the nice thing about this, that I'm pretty proud of, is once they watch the video, they go to a follow-up activities PDF. And you can either say, choose one, or if they're older, choose 2, or choose all of them, or I don't know, or if they're younger or they need more structure, you actually can choose the activity and say, this is what we're going to do. So it's very variables on depending on what you need. But the nice thing about it is it's all cross-curricular. So it's always, there is a science. I always want to include some kind of hands-on experiment type if possible. And then there's always other options where it is, creating a skit or make a song, or, create a comic strip or do some more research, so that, we kind of hit all of those different learners, because we want them to explore further. But I don't want to just, there are some kids who don't like the hands-on, who don't want to do that. And that's okay.
So when you say different learners, you're talking about like kinesthetic, visual, auditory type different learning styles. So if you've got a kid who just sitting down and writing a paper is not necessarily their cup of tea, but getting up and creating a little skit and then writing down what they did about the skit, that changes the concept, the way they're taking it in.
Exactly.
I
To the
love
point
that.
of right. And or they really don't like presentations, but if they created something and then at the end, what I encourage at the end of the week is to share, whether it's share to you, share to a homeschooling group, or whatever it is. It's not technically a presentation like, oh, I have to. It's I'm just sharing that information. I just shared what I created, this
Yes.
sculpture that represented XYZ, and and there's research to it, even though you may, you might have a child who says, go do a research project. They're like, that means like a, 5-page paper or a, 2-paragraph. I don't want to write. Oh, but just go learn about this so that you can make sure all of the parts of your sculpture are correct. So it's really about making sure that we hit all of the different aspects of teaching and topic. So like for me, I really think because teachers, home or in the classroom, have so much on their plate. You just, you have to teach everything. So I really like to integrate so that you can kind of check off a lot of boxes, like checked off science, checked off, reading. You can even do comprehension. I've checked off some art. I've checked off, it's like boom, boom, boom. And even in my lessons, I really try to incorporate history and geography so that we know where we're talking about. So even then, if a child watches a video and says, you know what, I really want to know more about Madagascar, that's great. That's like perfect. I mean, it may not have been exactly what the lesson was on, but if it sparked them to learn more about something else, fantastic.
Well, and I think that's exactly right. So I'm sort of summing up all these various tips that you're sharing in different ways. Be curious, ask questions, integrate other subject areas. And I can tell you, like with my own daughter, since I met you, she's been into reptiles. She still is to this day, but they come from different countries. So there's geography learned with that. Right now, she's getting a little more interested in their scientific names. So there's a little bit of Latin there.
Yes.
There are, and she's taken that actually into her first job and works with reptiles now.
Oh, nice.
But
I love that.
that's, I love the integration of other subject areas. So regardless of whether you use Jackie's curriculum or another curriculum, you can branch out with those ideas in science and think, okay, how can we integrate that with some history or some language or geography or art? Because do you still have kids keep like the journals, the like drawing journals and things?
Yes, exactly. So I have a scientific notebook workshop, and depending on when you're watching this, it's once a year, but I have one August 20th, so 2022. But if you get on my wait list, you can always see when the next one is. But yes, I hands down, no matter if you take my workshop or join the membership, I really honestly think the number one lesson that you have to have, or the number one tool that you should have, is some kind of a scientific notebook. You can call it a journal, you can call it a nature journal, whatever you want to call it. But basically, it's a book where everything is kept. And I really honestly feel, because that's what scientists do, we have to take notes. We have to, whether it's what we're observing, whether in nature, you're on a hike, whether you're observing an experiment, like what is happening, because then we have to change, or you want to change, or have the questioning of what if we did something else? What if we changed something? What would happen? Or if something didn't work, what happened? Oh, maybe we have to go look in our notes, because you probably won't remember exactly how much, let's just say a chemistry experiment, I put 1 tablespoon of whatever, or you're cooking, something like that. It didn't work out. Oh, I put 1 teaspoon. I was supposed to put 1 tablespoon, something like that.
Yeah.
You want to keep notes, and that is science. That's to keep it accurate. So I really I want everyone to do the scientific notebook. I make it a kind of a fun way, and it's in my opinion, super easy, because you just go outside. But there are certain little aspects to have on a typical like scientific notebook.
Well, I can look back And I wish I would have had my daughter do this because she has always been so interested in all the different science things. And she probably has various pieces of paper that I've saved, but not all in one notebook. But like one year, she and her friend discovered in our tree right in the front yard, just off the porch, a hummingbird nest. They literally watched those hummingbirds go from eggs into the little birds and leaving the nest. And wouldn't that be sort of a neat thing to look back on, drawings and all the research I know she did? Like, we went to the library a lot and got books and various things around those hummingbirds. But it's also sort of this memento as a parent, sort of like scrapbook type things, right?
Absolutely. And yes, that's the thing is I would encourage every year. It doesn't matter. It's a school year. It could be a, calendar year, whatever it is to have, or just when it's done, you can have different volumes, but it is a great way for to reflect, B, to say, you know what, I thought I did an experiment on this before, but it's a little bit different. You can go back and look. It is a great parent momentum, and also I think it as a teacher's kind of when at the end of the school year, it's a portfolio. Basically, it shows a child's work, which I think they should be extremely proud of, to even see like, this is how it, was in the beginning, and then this is how I progressed. But even sketches, I think that would have been amazing to see.
Yeah.
Or just little notes even. I like little notes too, side notes of, wow, they're hatching, or they're flying away, or, or I'm sad, they're gone. The little things that are just show insight into children's minds. I mean, and the thing is, with science, naturally, I honestly feel children are born with an interest. And nature, science is such a great place. Like you think about when you're walking your little teeny tiny toddlers, that are barely walking, right? And they'll stop, they'll look down because they're really close to the ground, and they'll see like a worm or a little bug, or, or start playing with the dirt, or, like pulling the grass, whatever it is. They have that interest of, what is this? Well, what can I do? Like, can I touch it? All these things. So the fact of I really want to encourage like everyone to, and finding a good curriculum that fits you, of encouraging that hands-on, encouraging it, and making it easy for you. And that's what Backpack Sciences really is I really want to make it easy, quick. I really kind of promote the fact of, you don't need to know anything. You don't even know, you don't have to do anything. You just, it's ready to go. Unfortunately, of course there's the whole like, oh, I have to purchase, thing that is sometimes that does, you just have to kind of get over that one in sense. But I try to make things that are in your home, because I know for example, teachers, same thing. They are, and same thing as parents, you're paying everything out of your pocket, so I don't encourage people buying a $500 microscope or anything. But, so I do kind of try to make it reasonable so that you actually do it and nothing is stopping you. So.
That's actually really helpful as a parent. If you don't find that, oh, just to do all of these lessons, I have to go buy this, this, and this. I mean, the occasional thing that's nice, or it comes up, right? I misspoke there, but it comes up. Something I want to share with parents as they're listening to this is, I've talked in previous podcast episodes about a lot of different styles of homeschooling, whether it's curriculum based or unit studies or even project based lessons. And what Backpack Sciences is, it can be all of those things. It is a curriculum. So Jackie is sharing. How many lessons a week do you share now?
Yeah, there was a point when I was doing once a week, and that was a lot. I do 2 new lessons a month. But the nice thing about it is, so people, once you join, you have access to all of them.
All of it. Yeah. So I get
It
it.
really, it depends on you. Like if, oh, I want to, especially where you live, because everybody lives in different, areas and it's winter, summer, or I don't want to do that, or, I'd rather do it this time of the year. So it's totally based on you. But then I'm constantly adding. So like as of right now, the recording, I'm doing forensic science. So if you wanted to follow me, it would be every 2 weeks. Most people just kind of do their own, like,
Hmm.
and then I'm always open to, because like I said, I'm always adding. So, I want to hear from other people like, oh, do you have you don't have a unit on this. Can you create that? I'm like, yes, that's a great idea. Let's just start that.
Well, and just so parents understand this, your program's been going a few years now. So a lesson a week, there are a lot of lessons in there already.
Right.
And so you can sort of pick and choose what interests you in the moment. Let's say there's something on the ocean. Well, if you're going on vacation, on a beach vacation, you might want to save that unit until like the month or two before to do that. Or if there's something that's more regional around the mountains, or maybe this is better for this season inside. So
Right.
I think that's really a nice thing. The other thing, I want to continue with what I was going to share with parents, but I had that question for you in the meantime. So with the project, the unit based and the curriculum type of styles of homeschooling, you're really getting it all. There is curriculum here for you. You
Mhm.
can take one of Jackie's lessons and you can expand it just to what she has offered. Or if your kids are really interested in something, you can expand it even more, just through the library and going to museums and whatever, because you've piqued your child's curiosity. But then what I like with project-based learning, the key thing with project-based learning is it's sort of like a unit study, but the big difference between a unit study and project-based is a unit study you're really just doing for yourself. A project-based learning is you're sharing it with others. So Jackie also has like a Facebook group that you can share. I would think you can share those lessons in there, or you can share it on your own Instagram with your family and friends, right?
Absolutely. And I think that is really a key point of at the end of, well, so scientists, right? So what we do is you do your research and you do your experimenting and all of that. And then at the end, what do? They publish, they share. They share their information, right? So I really think it's important for kids to share their information. It can be super informal at the dinner table. Oh, you wrapped up, your study on porcupines or whatever it is. And so tell us, that's the presentation. If a child can just say, oh, I learned, and here's some facts about what I've learned. Or, I really don't like XYZ or whatever it is, that's totally fine. I mean, it can be a formal, here's a poster board, or, and I want to tell you about things. It totally depends on your group, but it can be very informal. But either way, it's sharing. And I think that's really important for kids to, and there you go. That's the presentation. That's the, how to speak in front of people, those skills that I think are necessary, honestly. And to practice it in this fun way is I think easier and good. And one thing about my membership also, I don't know if it was there before, but I've really ramped it up with just having teacher strategies, like videos on how to improve where you're at. It's the success path, where people come in at different levels of teaching. Like, you might be a brand new homeschooling parent, or you might be, you've been doing it for a couple of years, but how can you incorporate that? And then also just really meeting with me. I think that's the one thing different about different curriculums is that you have me to ask. Like I have a lot of people saying, well, how would I adjust this? Or, in my son or my daughter or my, homeschool pod, we have these, we have XYZ. So then I would be able to say, okay, well, let's adjust it. Let's just say, like I would do this, I would do that. And that's the nice thing about, I think, the membership is that you're not just given paper, like some curriculums you just have, and you have no access to who created it. And like I've had one person, we did it was a frozen bubble lesson, and they needed dry ice. Well, she was just like, well, I'm on a tropical island. I do not have access to dry ice, nor is it going to be cold outside ever to be cold enough to do this. So we brainstormed, and I found a different chemical that she could use, and so that's a nice thing about just having me to, and I'll tell you if I'm like, I have no idea, but I will, help try to find that information out. So yeah.
To figure out a solution.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Jackie, I think this has been awesome. So I'll sum up for parents sort of those 5 that we talked about that you can use with any curriculum, whether it's yours or someone else's. Be curious, ask questions, like lead by example for your child. Ask questions. So you're teaching curiosity, you're asking questions, you're integrating other subject areas to make your science curriculum stand out a little bit more. Let's see, use a scientific journal.
Yes.
And then share what you've learned, whether it's with your own family and friends or your own homeschooling group or in Jackie's group, however you want to go about it, but share the things that your kids are learning. Have them share. You don't share for them necessarily, have them share.
Right.
It's theirs to share, right?
Right, because they've now become the expert. And that's, kids love to be the expert of something. And,
Oh, yeah.
the scientists who put things together or experimented on this and that. And so that I overall, just hope that science is just a great avenue, in my opinion, because you can put math, you can put language, you can put reading. I think it's a wonderful place. I'm pushing science, obviously, because that's what I love, is that, you can use that as your base to go off of all the different subject areas, but integrating it, because I really think it makes more sense for kids when you are putting a math problem to an actual issue, or language, or you're reading something that is actually integrated. Like you said, geography with your daughter, she's learning science, but then there's geography to it. And then there's also, why are there different reptiles? Oh, because there's, behavior, there's food source. I mean, it goes on and on, like climates and, everything. So I really think that if you can be excited about science, the fact of, you don't need to know everything, and you just kind of let it go and not push it off, I think that would be fantastic. And I hope that everyone does science every single week.
Yes, yes. So I want to wrap this up by mentioning 2 other things. One is, I forgot to mention in the beginning, Jackie is a certified Montessori teacher, has a lot of experience in the classroom as well as that in the field science. So I think you are just the perfect person to do this type of thing. The other thing is, I want to clarify and make sure. So when your membership, homeschooling parents buy it, but so do like classroom teachers, right? To share in the classroom. So a homeschooling parent, let's say you're leading a homeschooling group of some sort, you could actually use this curriculum to lead a homeschooling group and sort of have a small group setting of kids where you're doing this together even. Is that correct still, that you can do that?
Yes, all of that is still correct. Yes.
All right. Well, I know with some types of memberships, maybe there's an individual membership, and then there's like a family, or you might have to have a different license to teach a larger group, but yours is just at this time anyway.
Yeah, at this point, it's just easier that, I sort of see it as, I mean, maybe someday I'll get there where it is broken up. But at this point, I mean, my main goal, my main mission is just to make it easy for parents, for, a teacher to just have the access to the ready to go lesson. And as you mentioned, I think as you had, you had said something like, introduce yourself. And then I got really super excited about telling more about science. So I got, yeah, so I am, credentialed to teach Montessori from 1st through 6th grade. And then for Montessori, and I taught in the classroom for 11 years. And then, but before that, actually, I don't know if I knew this, but I'm also state credentialed to teach middle school and high school science. And I did that before Montessori. So my excitement about it is just, I absolutely understand how much work it is, how much time for prep. And I just want to eliminate that. I just want it to be easy to just watch the video, or you can, and as also in the lesson, or in each topic, I have a formal lesson plan. So if you don't want kids to be watching the video, you'd rather give the lesson yourself, then it's all there. There's a transcript, there's a step-by-step, like I have little presentation cards where I have a little symbol in the thing, and it's like, in other words, it's telling you, put the card right now, put the card to show.
That's perfect.
Yeah. So if you're not a, experienced teacher, you can have that guidance. And then once again, you have the follow-up activities ready to go, and, they can choose that. It's multiple, activities, so kids aren't forced.
Very versatile.
Yeah. So yes, you're allowed to right now. I mean, I kind of sort of have it as an honor system of, if you're using it for your family, fantastic. If you have like one little pod that you're teaching, that's great. Because as long as it's not, people are just sharing it, all over the place, but it's really just, it's helping you as a educator, whatever environment that you're in, it's helping you eliminate any kind of like the multiple hours of prep, and letting you have your time, to relax or spend time with your own family and things like that. So, because I know that's important. Absolutely.
Yeah. Jackie, thank you so much. I really enjoyed our conversation. And for my listeners, if you are interested in signing up for Backpack Sciences, I have a link right on our blog. You can go to homeschoolthinktank.com/backpack sciences curriculum. Each word is different with a dash in the middle. You can also find Jackie's information at homeschoolthinktank.com/interviews. That's a little bit easier to remember. And everything you need is right there. And I do appreciate it when you use the links we provide, because I do partner with Jackie, and I am so pleased to have always been partnering with you from the get-go, because
I know
I really think you have
3
an
years.
outstanding curriculum. Yeah. 2019.
Yeah, 3 years. This is
Yes,
great.
when we got started on this together, and we were both sort of I was getting going with Homeschool Think Tank. She was getting going with Backpack Sciences. And so it's been a few years of getting to know each other, and it's a partnership I wouldn't back away from for a moment, because it's excellent. And I really think you have a great product. And I think a lot of you as a human. I think you're just a good person.
Thank you. No, I love the support that we give each other, because we're both doing good stuff. I mean, we're both supporting and making it hopefully easier for everyone out there who is, educating their children, and that's important. And so both of you, I mean, I thank you too, and I love your mission and your goals too.
Well, thank you, Jackie. All right, that's it for this week. Live and learn your way. My name is Jackie, and I am your host of the Homeschool Think Tank Parenting Podcast. Bye-bye.